I wanted to jump out of my skin. I couldn't swallow. My hair was falling out, and it was all transient and scary. All we do is watch and wait now. And that was like the start of me getting into functional medicine because I was like, that makes absolutely no sense to me. I was a completely normal human to then I was, having all these crazy symptoms.
It's frustrating for everybody who's listening to this as a patient. Welcome back to The Beats. I am your host, Kelly Kennedy, and as you always know, from my heart truly to yours, I want you to know how the body really works, and I'm very excited. As you know, one of my favorite subjects is the parasympathetic nervous system and our self-healing capacity, and who better than Dr. Stephanie Canestraro from the Vagal Clinic in Toronto, Canada, to talk about how the vagus nerve works, how the body works. And this woman I've had the pleasure of knowing for a little over a year now, and she embodies, not only is she gorgeous to look at, but she embodies healing and health and devotion. And she's had her own health crisis, which has led her down this path that I'm very excited about having this conversation, because not many people are as intelligent, devoted, and curious without expectations to find the true answers, and truly scientists. And as you know, I love bringing scientists and medically enlightened specialists to you on this platform to really help you know and embody this work as your own. So welcome, Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Don't worry about that. It's just
you deserve every second. A trained chiropractor. She's got many different trainings, but I am very fortunate to call a lot of these people my friends. So if I called everybody doctor all the time, it would be a mouthful.
Yes, no, leave that out, because just like, I don't even think that is important at all. The best healers that I know aren't doctors. So yeah. That's something.
That's something. But you work with trained professional athletes. So you work at the top of the food chain in some regards. If you look at the evolution of the human organism, and athletes being the top of the optimization of the human being. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got here. You're trained chiropractor. Did you always want to be a doctor? I actually don't even know that.
No, I didn't actually. I always wanted to be a medical doctor. I actually I took a year off in between university and thinking I wanted to go to med school. And I actually went and I worked at like the BC Cancer Agency and shadowed other doctors, tried to see, do I really want this? And I'm so glad I didn't go straight into med school, because it's just like sick care. And I was seeing these people coming into the cancer agency, and I was the one hooking up their chemo, right? And they came in looking healthy and they left falling apart. And I just knew there was something more. And I didn't really have my own health struggles at that point in time either. But it was through someone else that I knew that was doing these great things that became my mentor that I kind of went into chiropractic college thinking and knowing I was going to come out maybe a different way than most people that come out of the chiropractic college, at least the one that I went to. So that's how I got into it. And then he worked with athletes. So that's how I ended up working with the athletes.
And so now you're a healthy, vibrant person working on these high-end athletes. And then what happened?
So I got sick at the end of chiropractic college for the first time, which I didn't actually know what was wrong with me. I was tentatively diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I was having
scary diagnosis.
Yeah, and
that's scary.
And so my symptoms turned on. And this is how I got interested in the vagus nerve, because I was sitting there a normal day. I was at the movies, in a movie theater, and I went from a completely normal person to my vagus nerve was hijacked, or that's what I kind of explain it as, because I went into what people would call a panic attack, but it wasn't. I now know retrospectively, but that's what they first tried to treat me for was anxiety. And I'm like, no, all of a sudden I felt like a jolt in my body. I couldn't stop moving my legs. I felt electric almost, and I wanted to jump out of my skin is kind of how I explain it. And those following days after that, my neurological symptoms went from Bell's palsy to my face then came back to normal, to full numbness in my right arm, to not being able to properly move my left foot, to, and then I was going to the ER with I couldn't swallow, and it was all transient and scary. And so, I got injected with, I got this severe dizziness. So I got injected with the gadolinium so they could do like a contrast MRI. And they're like, oh no, you're not having an aneurysm or a stroke or anything like that. And then it turned into these severe gastrointestinal like incontinence, and my hair was falling out, and I was literally, and then finally they start to take you seriously, and they send me for a nerve conduction velocity test, and then they send me whatever they, the test that they do until they go, oh, you have multiple sclerosis tentatively because you don't have enough plaquing, but there's some damage like around so like all we do is watch and wait now. And that was like the start of me getting into functional medicine, because I was like, that makes absolutely no sense to me. I was a completely normal human to then I was, having all these crazy symptoms. And I mean, if you read about neurological Lyme, like, did I not just explain it to a T? But no one understands this. Like, if someone's like a completely normal they're not having a chronic issue or anything like that, and then just like that, something turns and you're just like, oh, well, we just wait and see. Well, what happened? Why aren't we looking into that? And so that's what sparked me looking. That's how I found functional medicine, which now I've gone deeper with you guys with bioregulatory medicine, which is even more intuitive, makes even more sense. But when I found functional medicine, it was a good stepping stone for me, because that's when I found Dr. Terry Walls. She was in the tilt recline wheelchair. She got out of that wheelchair, and I was like, okay, someone's doing stuff. She had been to all the specialists. She had been to the Mayo Clinic. She tried all the new medications. And I wasn't even at a place where they were going to do that, but I wasn't going to sit there and wait. Like, that wasn't my style. Like,
paid enough so that you then will use your drugs on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to also add to that, I mean, I was in chiropractic college, right? So, but they didn't know anything.
The nervous system, which studying how the neurology of the body works and how to make sure the nervous, all the organs and everybody's getting all the information. I'm sure this was, it's frustrating for everybody who's listening to this as a patient. I want you to understand that. I know you've heard me say this before, but as a practitioner, when you are studying this stuff and you can't fix yourself, I got to be honest with you, it's like 85 times more frustrating, because you're like, I can't know how to fix my body. I'm studying the human body all day long.
Yeah. But no one pieces it together. It was all very anatomical, right? Like, they don't understand the energies and the interconnectedness. Like, even when we dissected a body, like, we cut away the fascia, right? Everyone's like, oh, the fascia, like, get that away. Like, and I mean, like, if someone understands the fascia, if you explain it like an orange peel, like, our body's so connected. It is like it's through our whole entire body. And there's not just that, there's energy within it. There's so much more that we don't understand, that I didn't understand until recently, because that was the first thing with my health. I got into functional medicine. I'm like, oh, I have parasites. I have this, I have that. And I lowered that, and my body regulated. I think I had good organ reserve. I was younger at that time. I also moved out of a place that had mold, right? It's always these like multiple factors, like, because I was in chiropractic college, you're not making any money. It costs a lot. You're living in a crappy place. You're not eating the best, like, so there's always like all of these like things that cause something to turn on. But like, just so people understand, like, risk factors for like Lyme disease are like dry socket, which I had like a few years before, right? So it's when your I got my wisdom teeth out, because that's what they tell you have to do, even though they weren't causing me problems, and I didn't know any better. And I got dry socket when the scab comes out and it suctions into the nerve, and essentially anything in your mouth has access to your bloodstream. And lots of spirochetes can live in your mouth, which are things that cause Lyme disease, but not enter the bloodstream, right? So our mouth is an interesting kind of microbiome. So there was that risk factor that could have been how it was introduced. I was bit by bed bugs. Disgusting. I really wasn't living in that shitty of a shithole, but like, I mean, it was infested
too.
Yeah. And so there's all these things where it could have been introduced, but there's like any stinging insect, like, when it comes to like Lyme or Lyme co-infections, or a lot of these stealth infections that I think are getting turned on by a lot of new technology and all the toxic load being higher than ever, like that, those are some of the risk factors that I had at that time. But then I like cleaned up my lifestyle. I did a parasite cleanse. I never found out I had Lyme disease at that time, right? I found out I had celiac, but really probably one of these infections turned on celiac. And anyways, I come to 2021. I had said in 2021, I feel the healthiest I have in my adult life. I said that like 2 weeks before my health crashed into like a deep, dark, like the worst that it's ever been. Like it turned on like that. I was in Las Vegas, right? I I work with some people there. I was just there visiting, but I usually stay away from the strip, but I was in the strip. So there's this whole, if people aren't aware of EMFs right now, there was just a whole new man-made frequency released and or turned on. And I was in like the heart of it where they had even like a stronger frequency. And I've learned a lot about frequencies since, but that was one of the factors at that point in time. I was also treating people who had just been vaccinated, which we know that there's a shedding component. I've done a lot of research and they know that it did not stay in one part of the body and that the spike protein could be passed on to other people. And I was manually treating people. So there was that. But like how bad, like it affected my heart this time. So I had that same electric feeling, that same feeling that I wanted to jump into my skin, that something was building, and that's all like the lymph getting clogged and all the stuff that goes along with it. But this time it affected my heart, and my heart went from beating regular to tachycardia, which means an increase in your heart rate, and heart palps, like painful, aggressive heart palpitations, not just like little palps, which we've all felt maybe like here or there. And maybe we felt them and just brushed them off even more recently with all of the new electrical fields that we've been, or fields of energy we've been introduced to, but they're not at all normal. And then my blood pressure was about 200 over 100. Wow. I mean, I had muscle fasciculations again. My hair was standing on edge, like literally like so static that like I could have literally thrown myself off a building. That's how bad I felt. Like terrible.
And you just arrived in Vegas? Or
no, so I was there staying at a friend's house outside of the strip, and then I was only staying in the strip for the last night because their parents came in, and so that was it was supposed to be the last night, but I could not fly home. And so what made matters worse was I let a cardiologist put a wireless heart monitor on me I didn't know at that time. I didn't know how. I knew about EMF, but I was just like, that's what they had to offer me. And I thought I was dying. And I was like, somebody help me. And I'm in the States and I'm from Canada and I'm used to like healthcare being covered for those emergency. And I'm like, I don't know, like do whatever you're doing. Like, I don't know. And I short circuited that thing. And they still want like, I don't know how many $1,000s for it. My body was, and that made me worse. I think I would have like recovered more. So
you felt like your body was electric. You had all these electrical impulses. You get to Vegas, you're on the outskirts, you're just not feeling awesome, but you're not. But 2 weeks ago, you felt better than you ever had. Now you're on the strip staying that night, and now all these electrical impulses are starting. But you were on a
no. Like they all started at once that night on the strip. So I was fine in the other place that I was. And then I had to stay longer, but I still had to stay in that place for a few more days. Yeah, because like I couldn't fly home.
And then you saw the cardiologist, they put you on a wireless monitor, but because it was wireless and
it's Bluetooth, like literally just like putting it through your body. And I had a phone attached to it.
You shut it down. You fried it.
Yes, I fried
body fried it. Like when you put something in an electrical outlet, it's too much electricity and it fries your computer. I've had it happen a couple times.
Exactly.
That's what happened.
Exactly. And I felt like I was having a heart attack at that time because that's when the sharp pain went down my left side. I had stabbing pain in my back. I was terrified and not somewhere that I'm really familiar with. So, I mean, it was actually terrifying. Luckily, I am in this field and I had all these things on me and I'm taking binders like my life depends on it, because I think it quite literally did, to bind up what I know is some crazy toxic load, radiation, electricity, whatever was happening. And I put carboxy, which is a binder, into capsules, and I took 1 an hour in order to get home. And I went straight to the emergency room because I felt like I needed emergency care still. And I don't know how I got back here. I have no idea. I literally had an event on the plane. It was just terrible. They almost landed, whatever. I got home Um,
Wow.
and that was the start of me doing a deep dive into like, what do I really know? Like, how can I know more? And I reached out to everyone I knew, including um one of the owners of Cellcore, and he had muscle test me. He's like, you have, Lyme around your heart, or bacteria around your heart. And if you looked at my blood work, I had like, white blood cells are supposed to be between 5 and 8, and mine were like 14. Okay. So it's like,
Oh,
it's not crazy, but it's still something's going on. And they're going, oh, no, everything's completely normal. My troponin, which is supposed to be like less than 5 optimally for females, was like 11, and they're like, that's fine. Things can happen, everything, because my body was trying to cope with this, and it was starting from like a healthier point of view than most people. But like, I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't had detoxed and it was, or felt as good as I felt before this turned on. But I'm telling you, the scary part is how fast I went from feeling, I said vibrant, that word, to someone, right? To pain in every organ. So then it went to my kidneys, right? The toxins, whatever gets turned on when your body is just overloaded with toxicity. My kidneys were in pain. I was peeing out protein. I was just, it was terrible. And because it took too many weeks to like really get at, like, I think the infections that got turned on, one of them being Lyme, which was very much through the roof, Bartonella, Babesia, these are all co-infections of Lyme. I feel like, that's why it took me like almost a year to feel semi-normal and almost 2 years to feel like 90% each day. But like, I mean, I'm still doing a ton of therapies, so they stir things up here and there. And I've learned a lot, that I can talk to my patients a lot about what they're going through. And I've also seen on like blood cell, like, am I allowed to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I do live blood analysis here at True Wellness.
Yeah. So through live blood cell,
I've overcome that already. I'm over it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, live blood cell is an amazing tool because we're forbidden to do it as chiropractors, but luckily we have people doing it around here. And like, you see what's in your blood, and you're like, oh my gosh. I went and I got one of the therapies that helped me a lot, which was called neural therapy, which I found through bioregulatory medicine.
Neural therapy, if they're listening to me.
Yeah. And it was a game changer. It was one of the things that really, 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 really helped me. But after it, we opened up like a really good spot because, it opens interference fields, which I'm sure you talk to your audience about. And, I went and I got a live blood cell, and he said the amount of metals in my body and the amount of gigantic biofilms. And that was what was causing the kidney pain. Because he's like, look at the size of these biofilms. He goes, look at the size of your red blood cell. Your kidney is only able to filter the size of your red blood cell. Look how big that biofilm is. And I was like, yeah, damn, those are clogged up right now in my kidneys, and my poor kidneys are showing it because protein's coming out because they're getting damaged. It's a blockage, right? So then I'm just upping the binders so that, hopefully they get absorbed in the gut so that they come out my poop instead of coming out the smaller hole, which is the getting filtered through those tiny filters of the kidney. So that's when I was like, wow, okay, right now I've got to go bind heavy metals more than ever. And I never really thought that was my problem. You know how people have the thing, like, I don't think heavy, I'm not a heavy metal person. Like, I don't know why, like, it just was never like, I didn't think it was my thing.
Well, did you have mercury? Did you have heavy metals in your mouth? Did you have silver fillings in your mouth? No. And you lived a healthy lifestyle. So I would imagine most people in your position would think, yeah, I don't have heavy metals. Metals aren't a part of it. So where do you, I mean, I know you know this, but I'm just asking you to share with the audience.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you notice, okay, I have all these heavy metals. Didn't part of you kind of go like, where the F are the metals coming from?
Yes. And then I went, I want to know what metals these are. So I've done like the urine test of my metal. Then I did the skin test for my metal. Then I did the hair test for my metal. Like, and my aluminum is through the roof. And for whatever reason, my cadmium too, and tin. And I'm like, well, so I start researching where could these be coming from? And my parents vaccinated me when I was a kid. So there's aluminum from there that we know gets stuck in the body, but likes the brain the most. But we're getting exposed to aluminum through cloud seeding or chemtrails or whatever you want to call it. And, there are these lines in the atmosphere that you see on a clear day. You see these straight line of clouds that, think people don't think much about them, but it's full of chemicals, and they're doing it to protect the ozone layer. But they're not protecting us with that, let me tell you, because those things fall down to the earth and they're full of pesticides and chemicals, and aluminum is a big, big proportion of what's in them. And then they're on the earth, they're sitting on the top of the water. We breathe them in, they get into our water supply. We're not
Then
not
there's
really
our food supply, and then
food
it's
supply, yeah, soil, all that, right? So
glyphosate full of aluminum, which Safety Senate is now proving that it's airborne.
yeah, yeah, and
Just breathe it in when you go outside.
well, yeah, and I was eating fully organic, and my glyphosate was beyond the 95th percentile, like when I tested my glyphosate, you know? So like, what's
Airborne.
going on?
Right.
Because I'm not doing that. Like, or, I'm trying, I know that I'm not perfectly always.
You're consciously trying to avoid it, is what you.
Yes. Yeah. And, not to mention, who knows, molds are stronger now because of EMF. So 5G is it's a man-made frequency wavelength, right?
Right.
Like it is not like even 4G, which isn't great for us, is a radio frequency that they harnessed. So it's like there's something that existed already that maybe we could, adapt to a little bit better. But these man-made frequencies are even more damaging because they're completely novel, right? Our body doesn't know these frequencies. And like, people have been told through the years, especially like, you shouldn't use a microwave, but they're like, stand away from the microwave, right? But now we're being microwaved. They're very similar waves, right? And for 5G to function properly, there has to be a tower every 200 meters, okay? And in between there has to be accelerators, so these little antennas. So, and when 5G is not strong enough and your phone continually searches for it, then it's even worse. So there's like, there's ways to lower it, but this is a frequency. So now you have metals that we've been exposed to that are in our body. And, everyone knows what happens if you accidentally put a metal and you press start on a microwave, sparks start flying. That's exactly what I felt like from my inside of my body. And so then I went down even more into, okay, what do these frequencies do to our body? Is there any studies on them? And there's one guy that I found most of the studies on. Then there's a European lady, I can't remember her name, but the guy was Dr. Martin Powell, and his stuff, and he was talking about the voltage gated calcium channels. And one thing that was in my blood work was excessively high calcium. At times it was 11, 11.2, 11.4, and calcium's very tightly regulated molecule. It's supposed to be less than 10, like between like 8.4 and 10, something like that. 8.6 and 10 is, but that 10 is high for our values. We do like 9.8. And then if you think about, okay, what does high calcium do? What do they do when someone has a heart attack, right? They give them beta blockers, right? Which are what? Calcium channel blockers. But now our voltage gated calcium channels are allowing this influx of calcium into our cells, but our cells can't handle it. So first of all, if it's a nerve cell, it's like hyperactive. Second of all, it gets damaged and the calcium leaks out. And so calcium can kill you in too high. Calcium can kill you in too low, right? So, and then when you have an excess of calcium, your body kicks it out into tissues, into the fascia, into wherever, and it can form stones, make you have severe pain, right? Because it's making you hard. Like it's literally calcifying.
It's a specific frequency too that's going to, like you say, that makes things harder.
Mm-hmm.
Why the calcium channels and the sodium channels are important in regards to your kidneys and your heart.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure that these pumps are working to shift the frequency, because every molecule, as we know, everything has an energy, everything has a frequency, it vibrates, and it's those within the ranges that are ideal for the human body that allow us to heal. And what Stephanie is bringing our attention to is so true, that just like when we discovered electricity was because of what? Ben Franklin saw, hey, there's electricity in the air. Maybe I can harness that and make an incandescent light bulb. As long as it's incandescent, they're fine. But we know from studying, if you don't have incandescent light bulbs and you're living under the fluorescent lights, that's a frequency, again, that doesn't naturally occur. Much like what she's talking about with this 5G, that 4G was more akin to radio waves, which again is a natural occurring frequency that the body has an affinity for, so it's not damaging our biofield. But then you take this 5G man-made frequency that's a one-directional wavelength that's like a laser beam
Mm-hmm.
going into your body like a bullet that's
Mm-hmm.
constantly infiltrating what
Mm-hmm.
should be like this beautiful magnetic field that's
Mm-hmm.
around your body that's going in every direction. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have this one beam that's coming in and just
Mm-hmm.
jabbing at you. And
Yeah.
that's what you experienced in Vegas, right? Like
Yeah.
your body was feeling awesome 2 weeks prior.
Yeah.
Then your load continued to increase with this electricity and turned on
Yeah.
all this stuff that maybe was in the fascia, in the dry side
Yeah.
limitation,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but then turn that frequency, change the calcium channel. So now you've changed the terrain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And but that's what I'm seeing in people. And then I start seeing, okay, I'm getting lots of people with these same complaints I had, some of them not to the extent that I had, but whatever, some of them worse. But when I see the commonalities, I'm seeing high calcium, I'm seeing lower potassium, right? Which is a catastrophe for your heart, for your heart's electric, and it needs the balance of these minerals. And then not to mention the heavy metals that are in there, you know, making you disrupting the already very delicate balance. And then, then these frequencies. So, I mean, I think it's huge. And the studies, the way that they kind of say that it's safe is that for 5G is that they say, oh, it only penetrates like the depth of your skin. But what they showed is it actually accesses your body through your sweat glands, and it acts like a little antenna, and then it gets deeper. So it's actually not true once you start to actually look deeper into the literature. And it is catastrophic for some people. And I mean catastrophic as in, SADS, sudden adult death. And I don't want to scare people, because there's ways that you can counteract, there's ways that you can detox your body, and then, we can't hide from it. It shouldn't be allowed, but that's not our reality right now. So how do we make ourselves stronger? We got to get interested in our biology, first of all, and we got to find people like you and like me trying to dig deeper into this stuff and really understand the intricacies of the human body and the way the human body interacts with the environment and how important that is. Like, people think they can eat a healthy diet to health these days, and they can't. I mean, good luck.
Oh, I wish I could show you my new pie chart that I drew. It's very
I want to see it.
Circle. A pie here for 10%, a pie for 40%, and a pie for 50%. 10% is your food.
Yeah, I know. It's true.
40% is your water, which is your lymph, which is the fluid part of your body, which this is interesting to me about the sweat glands, because if the frequency is coming in, because our fascias are frequency reset.
Yeah.
Frequency fabric, the antenna, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's picking up the frequencies, then it magnifies or amplifies those frequencies in the lymph.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're saying that that's where it's penetrating is through the lymphatic system, through the sweat glands, and I know that when Wi-Fi is on, your lymph stops flowing.
I have had to teach people how to release their own lymph acutely to protect their heart from heart pain, because I learned it on myself, and I've taught them different creams that they use, all of that, and how to just tease it away so they can get through these acute things without going to the ER, because it's not even, I don't even know that I know I had some sort of infection, but I don't know if I had Lyme carditis looking back, or if it was just severe lymph congestion, because my left breast was like a double D when I was having this heart pain, congested. My lymph was like, if I touched here, it was like a wave, and I was like sitting there, and and I know now, like when I have some sort of exposure and I'm starting to feel that anxiety, I'm just in there, like, doing the thing and getting my arm up and teasing it away. And everyone's like, what? But I'm telling you, it's the fluid mechanics are off because of like the minerals, like all of it comes together, and it's stagnation. It's stagnation causing a ton of these symptoms for people.
Yeah.
Right. And you got to clean it up, and you got to ground a bit, like get your feet on the earth, turn off the Wi-Fi as much as you can. I mean, hardwire your house if you're that into it. what else? Like move to the
Well,
ocean.
so I'm going to tell, I love you so much. I haven't told this story, so I'm going to tell this story to you, and everybody's going to hear this. So I agree with you 100%. Like, I've studied bioregulatory medicine, trained medicine, and go, okay, it's a rain barrel. It's never one thing that causes one thing.
Yeah.
It's a combination of things. And about 8 or 9 years ago, Ayn and I, we always had 7 things we listed: metals, chemicals, emotions, immune challenges, scars on the physical body, and water, but we added radiation.
Yeah.
Because nobody else was adding radiation. We're like, this is a problem, because
Yeah.
the sickest. You're seeing the most elite humans, and I want to talk about that in a second, what you're seeing, if you can. But also, we start seeing radiation. Okay, whatever. Well, where we lived at the time, we lived kind of out in the middle of no man's land. Well, not really. 7 minutes from the turnpike, but in Amish country. So one of the reasons we picked it was because when you turned on a cell phone in this house, there was no Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Everybody in the neighborhood were Amish or Mennonites, and nobody had Wi-Fi. So we're like, this is where we're going to move. Yeah. So we moved there, never planned to have kids. We had 3 dogs, and it was a great house. But it got water in the basement 3 times, and we kept rehabbing the house. And I was finally like, okay, enough with the freaking rehabbing the basement. I know we're mold. We need to move. So when we move, we now have a 10-year-old kid. I want to move to like a development where there's more people around.
Yeah.
It was great sky, but there weren't a lot of activity going on.
Yeah.
So we moved to a townhouse development. Now, I've never lived in a townhouse before, and it was new construction. So knowing what I know, we decided to buy the house, outgas it for 6 weeks, open up all the windows, put 3 air doctors in it, ozone filters. We had it all orgoned up. We had all the we had all the things, EMF rocks everywhere. And windows are open ever since we've been in the house. A window's been open every single day. Tons of outgassing.
Yeah.
I had a complication after throughout my life, blah, blah, blah. I had ovarian cyst bursts. I had 4 even bursts in 10 years. I haven't had one burst in over 15 years.
Wow.
We move into this house in November, and as soon as we moved in, I was like, I don't know, something's not right. I don't know.
Yeah.
That intuition part of Kelly was turned on. It was like,
Yeah.
The old house definitely had mold problems, but this house, I don't know what it is, but there's something not right. And my bowels have been off. And when I travel, my bowels go back to normal, and I've never had bowel situations. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, something's not right in this house. 4 months ago, I had an ovarian cyst burst for the first time in 15 years.
Oh my gosh.
And I had another one burst on Saturday.
Oh my gosh.
And I've also had this like little rash, which you can't really see here on my face, for like 4 months. I have had 0 symptoms, Stephanie. 0 symptoms.
Yeah. When I saw you,
anything in my body. 20 freaking years.
Yeah. So what are you going to do?
I deal with pain a little bit here and there, different, you know, if my fascia, but since I work with the fascia, that's all really good.
Yeah.
So Dr. Dross is here. We're doing all this research, and we're going to prove, I'm going to do all the tests to see what's coming out of my body, because I'm pretty guaranteeing you this is chemicals that are turned on because of the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Because as much as I have tried, like we have this whole office hardwired.
Yeah.
We do all the things that we can do. We have the Wi-Fi turned on at night, all the things.
Yeah.
But there is, living in a townhouse, you can't turn off. I turned on the other day, the Wi-Fi's off in our house. I opened my phone. I counted 23 Wi-Fi.
I know. It's, you can't.
And I'm like, this is what people aren't aware of, that it magnifies all the other problems that.
Yeah. They've proved it with mold, right? Too.
The chemicals in the house, I probably could have lived in the house for another 2 years before it built up in my lymph system. And I work my lymph system. Yeah. But in confounding with the amount of toxicity and stress over the last 3 years that we've all been under. Yeah. You know, and my stress isn't most people's stress in the last 3 years. My stress comes from, how can we get this message out fast enough? Yeah. People start to empower themselves of what's really going on. Yeah. That's where my stress has been. How big can I make this educational platform faster? Yeah. But there is also stress. I mean, I'm dealing with people shedding. I'm dealing with who knows what else? Right. Really. All the aluminum, all the things that have increased all the chemtrails. So I know my rain barrel's gotten bigger and bigger, but then I put myself in a house for only 8 months. Yeah. And in those 8 months, I've had 2 ovarian cyst bursts, and I haven't had an ovarian cyst burst in 16 years. Wow. So that is evidence that my lymph is clogged.
Yeah.
Why is my lymph clogged? Because even though we are doing all the things in our house that we can possibly do,
Yeah.
right next to me in the walls that I'm sharing, they're
Yeah.
not. And that Wi-Fi is affecting us and our regulation. So we're going to document it all, test it. And, you know, I said to Ayn, within the next year, we're moving again. I'm not going to live in that house.
Share it with me. I want to help. Can I be part of this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I like you. So then the other day I was doing live blood. I was doing a documentary filming for somebody. And she and the person that she's in the project with, Lloyd Burrell, they're very up about EMFs and cell phones and how damaging they are. And honestly, I've done a lot of testing throughout the years on regulation. I test everything on heart rate, regardless of what somebody says and how I feel about it. I test it. Regulation.
Exactly.
Does it improve my regulation?
Yeah.
If it improves my regulation. It's improving the coherence of the water in my body. And the water's more structured. It's more coherent. It's a higher quality. I'm in regulation, right? So we do all this testing, we do sonosol, we do all this great vagal resetting, parasympathetic resetting. And I'm like, so you want to do more stuff to prove how well you're getting? She's like, well, I think it's time to do the cell phone thing. And I was like, all right. And honestly, once again, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, whatever. Send your cell phone for 15 minutes. We'll do another HRV and live blood. We do the HRV. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And 15 freaking minutes on that cell phone, all she did was like watch. Yeah, she was watching stuff.
Was it plugged in or just on?
It wasn't, she had it on Wi-Fi.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and she was, she actually stood next to the closet with the Wi-Fi. And we turned the Wi-Fi on for that. And then she just started, you know, watching YouTube, whatever. Then it was one thing. But then when we looked at her live blood, I honestly almost threw up in my mouth. Because the little crystalline structures that we see that we used to not see so much of, that we see more of sun shedding. Exponential isn't even the word. Magnified 100-fold. I was like,
wow,
what is happening? I literally, my son was here. I walked into the room. I grabbed the phone out of his hand. And I go, we got a conversation about the phone. No more phone. Can't handle the phone.
I know.
Because, I mean, it's not that he can't handle the phone, like you were saying. We have to live within this technology, but we have to live with it with consciousness and learning how to love our bodies and to love our lymph and our fascia so that it can handle it, and then limit it as much as possible. I mean, Stephanie and I are going to find an island that we go live on.
Yeah, I know.
That we feel better when we're in the middle of the ocean or we're in the middle of some land that doesn't have Wi-Fi. And, you know, it's hard to get away from in the continental North America. And I was going to say kind of the United States, but all of North America, you can't get away from that.
Yeah.
It's not possible. The Yukon, you can't get away from it. With people in the Yukon dealing with, you know, like IC and all this inflammation in the abdomen, and it's Wi-Fi stress. This is 7 years ago.
It's really obvious in places that didn't have anything, and then it gets turned on. Like, yeah, it's same with like, I was talking to a guy. It was funny because I ordered like a gluten-free pizza or something. Like I was somewhere and he's like, are you, I was at the airport. And I asked if something was gluten-free and he's like, are you allergic to the gluten or the glyphosate? And I was like, that sucks. He was like, looked like he was 18, but he had just come from like somewhere up north, like none of it or something. And he said that they had introduced glyphosate there, and every single person in this native area were having issues that they have never, ever, ever had before. And it was like very obvious, like turning on celiac disease was one of the things he was saying, which they never had dealt with. And it was like this tiny, like very secluded population. So, you know, it's like our body does learn to adapt to certain toxins to an extent. And I guess when you're pretty clean too, I mean, it's like, you know, adding that first, like dousing the gas in the fire, or like the whatever they say with that.
No, makes the poison.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just interesting. But we also know even Wi-Fi for mold makes it 600 times stronger. So
it grows it. And so I'm so fascinated because Justin Franson, do you know Justin?
Yeah.
Met him, right? Yeah.
Met him through you.
At the BRMI, right? So he works with athletes too. And he had gotten on this whole EMF thing because of his athletes failing, that And it was right when a bunch of them gotten, I'm going to just throw them under the bus, had gotten Tesla cars. And he couldn't figure out what was going on for them. And all of a sudden he realized a bunch of them had gotten these new fangled cars. And then he did a bunch of research and found out it was the EMFs that these high athletes were failing from the EMFs. So you deal with high athletes. How long have you worked with athletes?
14 years.
Have you seen any changes in the last 2 years, Stephanie? Of over 14, the last 3 years?
I have never seen any of this before in my life. I have never had one of these experiences, and I've worked with full teams before, like almost every player, like 21 out of 25 of them. I've never had one, and now I have one from every team in the NHL at least. And
one of what stuff? One of what?
Player, one athlete, like having these mystery symptoms like that. No, well, that's what they are to their teams, and they're having, it's a lot of heart stuff, like lots of heart problems. And obviously there's been a few things. There's been an actual novel virus. There's been the vaccine for that virus that utilizes the infective part of the virus, as hijacks your DNA in order to make the spike protein. So there's been that, along with whatever toxins we know are in vaccines, along with a brand new technology turned on. And a lot of these rinks or stadiums or whatever it is they have a lot of Wi-Fi coming down on them, and something called 5G plus in 40 of the different states. That's the only places with 5G plus, which is an even more direct wave. So you were speaking about how it's not a scalar wave, which is what our body's used to, where it comes at us, it's just like a laser beam almost of energy. Previously, in every other year for the last, I think it was 4 decades, there's been 29 people that have dropped in the whole entire world from some sort of heart problem, right?
As an athlete,
it's now 29 a month as an elite athlete, professional televised athlete.
Okay. Went from 29 in a year.
Yeah. To 29 a month. Is the average.
The average. Mm-hmm. Having heart episodes for the most trained humans on the planet.
Yeah.
And what I know about that, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me, is what dumps into the heart is in the cardiovascular system is the lymphatics. And if it's thick and not being because of the Wi-Fi and the radiation blocking it and stopping it, that's going to make thickness, not to mention the spike protein, which adds to some detrimental effects into the cardiovascular system itself.
Yeah, but definitely not the only thing, or, to what extent, we don't know yet because no proper research is being done. But there are a lot of papers, just so people can look them up themselves, and they can look them up from the actual companies that make these, DNA modulating products. They know that they shed and go to different parts of the body. They have known that. So there's that component. We don't know. I don't know to what extent it's that. I know that COVID's inflammatory. I know that the spike protein's inflammatory, but the Wi-Fi is, because some people are vaccinated that are having these events and some are unvaccinated. I don't know about if they would say the ones that actually die. They haven't given stats, and they really should, because they just did an experiment, right? So when you do an experiment, you collect every piece of data. That's just how that's how everyone's like, I follow the science. Science is collecting data, especially after you introduce something novel into the body. So we have 2 experiments at the same time. So it's really hard to deduce which is the one that's the worst culprit, or if it's a culmination of them. And, the fact that they came out at the same time is a little bit suspicious. But, so I'm seeing what is like the toxic load, the overburdening of the body turning into symptoms where players can't play, where they have heart symptoms, where they have severe chronic ligament issues, like frequent tears. Which is probably from the calcium channels making the fascia
less pliable and more rigid, which is going to then make more of a ligament tightness, which is going to tear more.
Hmm. Yeah. And then, we already had the glyphosate, which is ruining the collagen anyways, because it has the glycine like molecule. So yeah. And then I'm needing to do the type of stuff that I was doing with the sick patients I was working with them, which is like, yeah, right. Like not just like, oh, we'll do, we would always try and go deep and get as, especially to the guys that were interested, everyone's on their own level. But like now it's people that I don't even think were anywhere on that level that are just needing it. They're in need of like, they're flying here.
You're doing for the chronic illness clients, you're now doing for your elite athlete clients.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a fascinating fact. So, thank you for going through all that. That's such an amplification, a magnification of the problem, what's going on, because I think so many of us get caught up in, this is what's happening to the average population. And, and I've looked at this world for a long time going, people are just chronically sick and they're not aware of it because there's so many things they don't understand, terrain medicine, blah, blah, blah. And I think the highly specialized athletes really magnify this problem, that here these people are treating their bodies like a temple. They're doing all the extreme things, from the food to the water to the exercise to all the things, and yet they can't either get away from the toxic load and the toxic soup, which is really the unforeseen things that we're up against. So we're both very happy people, and we've just dispensed an hour of very depressing news.
Yes, I did.
I teach flow and you're vagal nerve reset. So could you do something? So I'm very stressed right now, let's say, listening to this. How could we reset our vagal nerve system at home, or our parasympathetic system? I know I've seen you with a toothpick, perhaps. Could you teach everybody some way to reset their system? Why you called your whole clinic the Vagal Clinic? It's such a beautiful thing you've done to bring awareness to this. I love it so.
I mean, I did it years ago, naming it that because I told you, I felt like my vagus nerve was hijacked. And then I was doing a lot of work with the gut, and I realized that when you fix the gut, you can fix the vagus nerve, right? So a lot of my things, like from having acute stress, I learned how to like shut it down acutely. And that was where the toothpick comes in. So I do acupuncture. And so when I was on a plane, and I actually have done acupuncture on myself on a plane, but people look at you like you're weird. But a lot of my stress happens on a plane, when they make you sit there, and I used to have all these gastrointestinal issues, whatever. So I start tapping myself in these control acupuncture points and around where I know my vagus nerve is most superficial. And I found myself like calming down. And like, I mean, when I was coming back with that heart issue, I was tapping away, and people have used the toothpick technique to stop seizures when they know they're coming on, because like there's a lot of, I have a vagus nerve stim like right beside me just by chance, but like there weren't these kind of tools before like this. So we use tools to actually electrically stim it, which are now affordable, and you don't even have to put gel on anymore. So there's those really cool things. But I always have a toothpick on me, and you can tap your scalp, you can tap your face, because all your cranial nerves have like a connection with the vagus nerve, right? Vagus nerve's the 10th cranial nerve. I mean, even making changing your face posture, because like even I noticed when I was sick, my face stayed a certain way, right? And that's when your vagus nerve is shut off. You have this like monotone face. And so just like forcing yourself to smile, tongue exercises, so sticking out your tongue as far as you can, like touching side to side, or like lining the inside of your lips. There's always like, people know usually about humming, gargling, gagging. Those turn on the vagus nerve. Eye motion, like extreme eye motion. So there's a connection between your heart, which is controlled by your vagus nerve, and your eyes. So it's like an oculocardio reflex. So you can put light pressure on your eyes. You can do like an H pattern, which your doctor might have done to you in the past when you follow their finger, but you go as far over for the H pattern, and you hold it there for like 15 to 30 seconds. And that should have a calming effect. And you find the ones that work best for you. But cold, I have one girl, and the cold really helps her. And she had a lot of fainting on planes. So she takes an ice pack with her on the flights, and she just puts ice over her neck and her face, and it helps her a ton. So that kind of cold therapy, people are doing that a lot, like cold plunges or cold showers, or even your face in ice cubes, like any of that can be like really helpful for just calming you down in those intense moments. But there's just some, like, the vagus nerve is being now like, everything is like vagal nerve dysfunction, and it is, but it's like, what is causing it is everything that we talked about, right? And even like the biggest thing now when I feel like that, I'm trying to get my lymph moving, because when your lymph builds up, like, where does it go? Look under your collarbone, it's right there, your vagus nerve.
Right by your vagal nerve.
And it comes down there. And so all the toxic load is sitting on there, and then the vagus nerve gets almost like paralyzed. And there's different infections that can infect the vagus nerve. And I think COVID's one of them. And that's why people get a lot of the autonomic dysfunction afterwards. But yeah, those are some things.
I mean, I work the fascia, and I can honestly tell you that.
But when you work the fascia, you're also clearing the lymph and like getting the blood flow.
Most people's vagal nerves feel like they are in a sheath of cobwebs that's thick and like corded, like
so
and I have to do a lot of fascial adhesion release.
Anything here that you can, if you can massage yourself, some people are better at it than others. Just in behind your ears and down the back too, because the vagus nerve shares a sheath with the accessory nerve, which innervates the traps and all of these, like, so that's why you get a lot of tightness here. So you can push down on your traps and you calm someone down, right? What do people do? You like squeeze their shoulders and squeeze their neck. Like that's activating the vagus nerve. And that's why massage can help.
Nerve. That's great. Thank you. I didn't know that, Pearl. Thank you. That was great.
Yeah. There's a few fascial connections of different nerves. That's why the glossopharyngeal, which is like the innervation to this part of the tongue, that shares the sheath. So you move the fascia that the vagus nerve shares the sheath with, you get better blood flow to the area, right? So
all down under here.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of different techniques that you can use to kind of turn it on acutely, but you got to clean out the body to calm yourself down. And like Lyme can hijack your vagus nerve, right? Like there's lots of bugs that can too. And that's just part of your toxic load, right? We lower all the other stuff. You just made your list that you had that included radiation. We lower all of those, and then your vagus nerve calms down. And I know that from personal experience, because I was in the severe fight or flight, and it was not going away for months and months. And it's happened to me 2 times, like quite evidently. So just had to reteach me the same lesson, but I got a little bit deeper this time. So at least there's that.
Well, I really appreciate your depth of knowledge. And I know that a lot of clients that are listening to this, or community listening to this, might want a little bit more information about you. So one is, I'd like them to know where they can find you. But don't you have a book that you put all this in so they can really understand?
Yeah. We got the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
We call it a guide, but it's long. So it's like a book. So that is our vagal nerve guide, and it's available with all the tips and tools, like even, my little vagal nerve stim is on there, like, but all the different levels of vagal nerve stim, right? We're just trying to like go in depth into the vagus nerve. So we have that available.
We'll put the link for that in the show notes, but I really applaud you for naming your clinic what you did and going after people to understand how to reset their nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
I, like you, find that there's a lot of ways to do it. There's not one way. And
no,
people teach, you got to do cold plunge, or you got to do this meditation, or you got to do this.
No. Yeah.
So many ways to reset it. But I do think, like you, who study heart rate variability as well, and frequency and vibration, we've just begun to understand frequency, vibration, and energy. And that it is our job as a human on this planet being right now that we have to do our own research. We've got to understand this so that we can live and thrive in this environment of which we find ourselves in. And as we become more educated, then we'll hopefully take policy changes and different things of awareness to know that we want to work within the biology of the body. But I really applaud you for your diligence in getting through this. And throughout that whole time, you were treating people while you weren't feeling well.
I was trying. I had to work, right? And
Yeah.
run a business. So we did our best, and a lot of my team stepped up. Um, and, family and friends around you, and my partner helped me, like, get through all the pain, like the physical pain, um, which was, probably the hardest thing, like when it just stays with you and you're like, when will it kind of stop? So, you know, yeah, you just do what you have to do. But I always knew that I would come out of it, because there's always an answer. There's always an answer. There is. And we don't even know some of them. And maybe, so just, if you're going through something like that, keep at it. But if you haven't addressed or thought about the things that we just talked about, or if this is your first time listening to Kelly's podcast, then, dive in, because there's a whole new world out there. Because I was in functional medicine, and then I found bioregulatory medicine, and now it's going even deeper, so yeah. So just keep your mind open, because I was a closed-minded, kind of like ignorant when I first got sick. And I was very much like, because I wanted to be an MD at first, and I was very like pharmaceuticals save the world, which I think there are some great pharmaceuticals. So I will say that they're usually the ones that they try and bury. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, that is. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Great work. Absolutely. And I invite you all to join Stephanie's community as well, and follow her. And what is your website? Is it vagal?
Vegasclinic.com. And then my Instagram is dr.s.canestraro. I should change that and make it easier. And then we have a Vegas Clinic Instagram. Those are the major ones we're using. We're on Facebook and stuff too, but you'll find us there. Thank you
so much. Thank you, everybody, for staying through to the end. And please do rate this. As you know, it helps us get the word out. And have a wonderful, wonderful, calm day by resetting your vagal nerve. Take a breath and hum. And we love you so much. And you got this. Like Stephanie said, and I couldn't agree more, there is always an answer. Thank you.
Thanks.